So I'm going to let you participate a little bit. So what's the weakest finger in your hand? Come on. The pinky, that's right. And what is the most popular letter of the alphabet? A. That's right, somebody won. So tell me this. Why is it that the original designers of the keyboard chose to put the most popular letter A in that awkward position to be struck by the baby finger? Why is that? Doesn't make any sense. I'll tell you. Well, the original keyboard, of course, was the mechanical typewriter. And the layout actually originally had the popular letters in very easy to get to places. But what happened is, over time, people got good at it, and typists became faster. The letters all jammed up. So they had to figure out another way of designing the typewriter. And what they did is, they moved the popular letters to awkward places so they could slow the typists down to avoid that kind of jamming up. And why is that? That we today, with electronic keyboards, we still keep that legacy design of the keyboard to this very day. Why do we do that? Well, because we're so used to it. In fact, we're so used to it that we're actually blinded by that design. We can't even see anything different. Well, there's a term for that kind of blindness, and it's called Scotoma. Well, it's a medical term, and it means tunnel vision, but it's also sort of a psychological, emotional term that means a failure to see what's before our very eyes. A scotoma. It's a new word for you. Well, I work for the utility company, and I can tell you this, there are scotomas all over the place in the utility companies. But I want to talk about one specific scotoma that has to do with mapping and GIS. Well, maps have been used for many, many years in the utility company, and what they used the maps for was to kind of locate their stuff, their wires, the cables, the valves, and all that stuff, and they put it on the maps. And the original maps had sort of India ink on linen, and then pencil on mylar, and then computer-aided design, and today, GIS. Funny thing, the old linen maps look an awful lot like the GIS maps. And why is that? Well, utility companies want to make sure that these maps look the same through the ages. And not only look the same, but actually they use the maps in sort of the same way. And what they have built is a scotoma to the possibilities of GIS. GIS isn't about, finding out what I already know. It's about discovery. Finding something new, like where are there places in my infrastructure where a single event could take the whole system down? That reminds me of a story. I said I work for the utility company in the northeastern part of the United States, and that's a tough place to run a utility business, I can tell you this. Snowstorms and ice storms and, hurricanes, all kinds of stuff. Well, I had this guy working for me, and his name was Stanley. And every single day, Stanley had to make a decision. And the decision was this. As the crews came back from their sort of normal daily work, he had to decide, do I keep the crews on overtime in case something bad happens? And, we're in New England, and something bad a lot of times happens. Or do I send them home? So do I keep it on overtime, or do I send them home? And the way he did this was, he would gather up all kinds of data. So he'd get the weather forecasts, and then, he'd talk to his supervisors, and then he might figure out in his head, we haven't maintained this part of the system, or we haven't trimmed trees. And he would gather all of this data in his head. Then he would organize that data by location. Then he would do sort of a risk profile. Then he'd make a decision. So he'd walk into my office and he'd say, Bill, we're going to keep 2 crews or 5 crews, or now we're going to send them all home. And in all the years that I knew Stanley, he was almost always right. But what was he doing in his head, right? He was doing spatial analysis. Then Stanley retired. All of that experience, all of that knowledge, all of that data just simply walked out the door. What are we going to do? Well, we have GIS and all of the capabilities that we've been seeing today, gathering data, spatial analysis. And so think about it. Think about that I could go outside the utility company, grab a fire map, and then maybe look at bridge damage. You know, I got these big old trucks, and I don't want them to drive over weak bridges. And I combine all of that stuff, just like Stanley did, to produce this map. Simple map, but it's brand new. The red is where it's really bad, the green is good, and the orange is kind of in between. So now I can make a decision about what to do. Spatial analysis, GIS, to transform the business. And I believe that when people remove those Scatomas, innovation and transformation can happen. So I've got one final story for you. When I was with the utility company, we used an ancient form of communication, ancient, made popular by Native Americans. Anybody know what it is? Come on. Smoke signals, that's right. And here's how it worked. When a transformer would blow up and catch on fire, we knew exactly where the problem was because we saw the smoke. That's right. Well, we don't want to do that anymore. We want to use GIS and spatial analysis to find out where the fire will be before we see the smoke. And so your opportunity really is to use GIS to peel away those Scatomas for innovation and transformation.